everybody, y'all. Hey, y'all. I am Yolanda. I am co-founder of Harper Therapy, and Alina Klein has brought a really, really important conversation to our community this month. In like what happens when you are just not in a relationship, or your relationship isn't what you thought it would be. How do you navigate through exploring some options, like exploring what you need from the relationship, exploring what you thought you were gonna get versus what you're getting, like all of those messy things that we don't really think about until we pause and realize, like, whatever it is like, this isn't it. Like, I don't know what I need and want, but I know that this is not it. Right. So this is a really, really important conversation. I love this piece. I was just telling Alina before we started the video, like, I'm so glad that we are having this conversation, because this is part that doesn't get talked about, but you know, it just impacts things so much. So without further ado.
So this is where we talk about the possibility of ending the relationship or separating. This is a tough one, you know, like, breaking up is hard to do, as they say.
Yeah, it's a saying for a reason.
And
well, there's grief.
So much grief. It's so messy. You know, it's not like we want everything to be wrapped up in a little bow, and oftentimes when you're ending a relationship, there's so many feelings and so much tied in that it's just really hard.
I think even when there's other negative feelings of, like, because the go-tos, like, we hear from people, are like resentment and anger and like frustration and those kinds of things. Certainly those are applicable, right? When we've been in a relationship for an extended period of time that's not working. But what we don't usually identify is that grief piece. Like, this is the ending of something that, you know, you didn't, it's a loss. You never thought that you'd be here.
You didn't plan for this.
The loss and the grief around the relationship that you thought it was going to be. We don't talk about that. Like, there's a lot of feeling of loss and grief of, like, it wasn't the relationship that I thought it was going to be, right? And a lot of shame that goes along with ending a relationship.
Yeah, because I think that, you know, even from a societal perspective, right? Like, divorce is still bad, and, you know, I mean,
for a lot of people,
and then sometimes, you know, people think, okay, they're going to end one relationship and maybe jump into another, but then the same stuff happens, and you know, the patterns continue. So we see that here as well. But you know, if you get to this, you've done the work, you've done the soul searching, you've tried to make the changes, and you're still at a point where you're saying, you know, I don't think this is going to work for me, then it's so important to do what you can to make it as...
oh my goodness.
How do you
like,
even
this
say it?
This is the part that I was really thankful that we're going to talk about, because we don't talk about this part. Like, there's still work to do. This is like the biggest work, I think. So if you are coming to see us individually, you've come to this point of, like, this is not the relationship, then what like, intentionally thinking through, what will life look like? What does a breakup look like?
What is the next step?
What are the next steps? I mean, we joke about the term conscious uncoupling, but there's really a lot of intentionality that needs to go into the steps of a breakup, so that there's as little collateral damage as there can be, right? Because a breakup of a relationship expands to kids. If you have kids, it expands to each of your families, expands to friend groups, like, right? So, like, what is that going to look like?
What are those conversations going to look like when you have them? What are your feelings around those conversations, or your fears around those conversations? You know? I mean, I think all of us as humans, we've been through it in one way or another, and you know, we've done things imperfectly, right? And maybe would look back and would have done things differently. And I think if this is where you're at and you're looking to move forward in this direction, you're not going to do it perfect, but how can you move through it in a way where you maintain your own integrity and try to be as compassionate and kind to the person that you're
Yeah, and what I think a big piece too is like, what is the learning for me? Not that, because relationships are like a pie. Like I own at least a part of the pie, right? So how can I understand and learn about myself more so that I can carry that forward? What are some things that I would do differently?
100%.
That is so important. I think also, so we've talked a little bit about like this is what the work looks like if you're coming in individually, trying to explore these questions. Just as important, if you and your partner are coming in for couples therapy and you've decided like we do need to split up, that's not the end of couples therapy. Right. Can I just like the next step is so important, probably even more important than the work that came prior, right? Because if you're separating, what does the separation look like? We find that couples do not have this conversation with some clarity about like who's moving out, what are there other relationships? Are we working on the relationship? Are we not working on the relationship?
Sometimes one person is, another person isn't.
Right, but if you haven't had the conversation, then you're like, oh, my partner did this thing, and we didn't talk about it. No, you didn't talk about it. And then if you're moving forward to divorce, please, especially if you have kids,
like, how do we talk to the kids about it?
How do we talk to the kids? How do we maintain integrity and not bash our partner?
Right.
Because I have some news for you. Your kid's DNA is 50% you and 50% the partner that you're breaking up with. Right. And if you say something negative to your kids about your partner, they're interpreting that as something bad about them.
Right.
Because that's half of who they are.
Right. And a lot of times in couples therapy, we talk about being in our wise adult versus like this younger part of ourselves that's more reactive. And especially when it comes to kids, like it's so important to really connect with the wise part of you that knows that your significant other isn't a bad person, they're human, because that is what you're going to pass to your kids. You don't want to pass that reactive kind of childlike behavior, because that is what your kids will emulate.
Yeah. So just when many people think that the work here in the therapy space is coming to an end, is actually the beginning of maybe a different kind of work, right? A different kind, but equally, if not more so, important part. So and it's murky waters, it's just messy and it's painful, right? And so having a space and having someone to just be real with what you're feeling, right? Because
sounding board.
If you've got kids, you might be trying to, hold things together, like whatever it is. But having a sounding board, having a place where you can come and be honest about how you're feeling and talk through what next steps look like, can be really, really helpful. So if that sounds like something that you would find beneficial, give us a call, 813-434-3639, and we can help you connect with Alina or one of our other therapists here that can help guide you through this process. That's what we do.
Yes, we do.
All right. Thanks, y'all.
See ya.